If you aren't outrageously happy most of the time, like if you don't wake up feeling eager and excited for the day, or if you don't feel this just incredible sense of peace wash over you at times, then this is for you. Because I'm going to talk about a phenomenon I call unconscious unhappiness. And it's not a bad thing, it doesn't mean anything's wrong, but this is something that I think we all go through at times. And it's super important because once we understand what it is, how it shows up in our lives, then we can take some pretty simple steps to fix it. Because I believe that we all deserve to feel joyful and fulfilled pretty much every single day. And this is the path to that. So if you ever feel like everything's mostly fine, but deep down something's off, you just can't quite put your finger on it, then I think this will really resonate with you. Welcome to The Joy Within. I'm Kyle Greenfield, and I believe that you have the ability to become calm, confident, and happy anytime that you choose. Some days, that's easier than others, but with the right tools and the right way of thinking, we can unlock incredible states of joy, peace, and well-being within us. So visit thejoywithin.org to get started today, so that together we can create a happier and more peaceful world. Over the years, I've had to deal with pretty much every type of negativity I can imagine. I mean, stress, frustration, failure, even depression at times. But I've also generally had a good life. I mean, nothing was wrong. But for years, I just had this sense that something was off, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I couldn't reconcile it. I couldn't figure out why, on the surface, life was mostly good, and yet I still had this yearning, like something was missing. Back then, I didn't realize that this is probably the most common problem that we face, and no one talks about it. So I started to call it unconscious unhappiness. It's when nothing's wrong, but something isn't quite right. Often something we can't name or describe. And this can show up in a lot of different ways. It can be a sort of background tension or stress, but we just keep plugging along. Or it can be a feeling of trying to shrink our goals. I mean, telling ourselves that we don't really want something that we do, not allowing ourselves to be excited about it, because deep down we're afraid. Or it can be a feeling of reaching your goals, only to find that success isn't what you thought it would be. Like this thing that you've always wanted just isn't fulfilling you the way that you imagined it would. These sound like very different problems, but they're not. They have the same underlying cause. They point to a disconnection between the thoughts that we think, the actions that we take, and our own inner joy, peace, and well-being. I really think this happens to everyone. I mean, we all make compromises in our lives. We all do things that we think we have to do, but we don't feel passionate about. And we all have thoughts that weigh us down at times. And that's okay. That's normal. But unconscious unhappiness, to me, is about being able to give it a name so we can point to it, we can catch it when it happens, and then we can come back home to our natural joy. And because it looks different for everyone, I've put together a short self-assessment for you. So if this is resonating, then I really encourage you to go check that out. I'll put a link in the description below, or you can just head over to thejoywithin.org. And to be clear, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a sign. Unconscious unhappiness is a signal that we are ready to step into deeper states of peace and of love in our day-to-day lives. Personally, I think of it as a calling from a higher version of myself, that it's time to become the person that I know deep down I am capable of being. And that twinge of negativity, that feeling that something is off, is just like a notification, a reminder that I've stepped off my path just a little bit, and it's time to come back. And the solution for that, always, is to reset, to come back to center, to come back into alignment. That is our path. And it's not hard. We just have to know how to do it. So I just want to quickly go through what I call the 7 masks, the 7 most common ways that this shows up in our lives. And then I will outline the simple framework that I use to come back into alignment, which works every time. I think one of the trickiest things about this problem is that it shows up differently for everyone. And that makes it hard to pinpoint and hard to know how to fix. But broadly, I think that there are 7 main types. And I call these the 7 masks because they're very often just hiding in plain sight. They're right in front of us. We just don't see them for what they are. The first, I call the slow burn. This is a persistent low-level stress or tension. It's the feeling of always being on, always carrying the weight, always pressed to get through the next thing. Then there's the stuck spiral. This is when we just keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. And it feels like frustration or a lack of progress. Like, why can't I just get past this? The third one is something I call the quiet I can't. It's self-doubt, but often shows up as hesitation or indecision or procrastination. It's when you really want something, but deep down you don't think it's possible. So you try to compromise, you try not to want it, or you kinda sorta make a half-hearted effort, but you don't really believe it. Next is the selective should. This one's tricky because it often looks like success. It looks like life is pretty good. But the reality is, you're living the life that you think that you should be living, not the life that you know is right for you. That should might come from your family, from your culture, or even from yourself. But it leaves a hole, even when you think that you're doing everything right. Number 5, I call the expectation illusion, and we've definitely all been here. You imagine how something will happen, how it will feel, but then life doesn't turn out that way. The expectation sets you up for disappointment because unconsciously it leaves you fighting against what is. And that's a fight that you just can't win. Then there's the meandering monkey, and this is the classic monkey mind. Thoughts wander in out of nowhere. You keep going over the same things in your head over and over again. You try to quiet the mind, but you can't. It's exhausting, and it keeps us from being truly present. And last but not least is what I call the lost spark. It's, that feeling when you just sort of sigh and think, it's a quiet resignation, a loss of enthusiasm. And it's so tricky because most often this happens gradually, over years. We just gradually settle for feeling just fine or just okay instead of absolutely amazing or on top of the world. And I think that's the real challenge with each and every one of these, is that very often they're not bad enough to make us want to change. They just drag us down just a little bit, and we get used to carrying around that weight. We get used to that feeling of discontent. And we tell ourselves that it's normal, that it's okay not to be truly unconditionally happy and alive and fulfilled. And in that process, we forget that it's a choice. Every single one of these is a choice. It is a choice to let ourselves feel weighed down. And it is a choice to lift ourselves back up. Hey guys, so I know it can take some time for these ideas to sink in, and I know they can be frustrating, especially if you're going through a tough time right now. So if as you're listening, you're thinking, okay, but how do I do that? How do I actually make this work for me? Then we should chat. I've started taking on a handful of coaching clients. We'll work one-on-one to help you apply these strategies to whatever it is that you're dealing with right now. You'll start to feel calmer, more confident, and more in control as you go about each day. So if that's you, head over to thejoywithin.org to schedule a free call. Otherwise, back to the show. So how do we do that? Well, remember a few minutes ago, I said that fundamentally, unconscious unhappiness is a disconnection from our natural inner joy. The little voice in our head gets in the way. So the solution is actually pretty simple. All we have to do is come back and reconnect. That's called alignment. Alignment feels like turning down the volume on that little voice in your head, so you can turn up the volume on your natural inner joy. It feels like being whole again, like being your full self again. And it isn't hard. We just have to follow the path of alignment. There are 5 steps. First, we do whatever it takes to step back and reset. We catch the negativity, we call it out to ourselves. Then we turn within. We reconnect with our natural inner joy. Once we feel centered, we can begin to shift our self-talk. We reach for a better feeling thought, one tiny little step at a time. Gradually, this will lead us to realign our beliefs. We stop carrying around those old ideas and fears that are no longer serving us. And when we get those 4 steps right, that leads us into alignment. And the only thing left to do is to act from a state of calm, confident center, a state of clarity and inspiration. Aligned action feels like flow. It feels like knowing with absolute certainty that this is the right next step, that you are on track exactly where you are. I cannot describe to you how fulfilling this feels. When you follow this path of alignment, you just enter into just deeper and deeper states of joy. You can use it to feel passionate or at peace. You can feel inspired or at ease. It's up to you. And I'm not going to promise you that you can just blink and be done with it. It's not something you just do once and check off your to-do list. At least I can't. And I'll be honest that some days are harder than others. But I can say this. As I've learned to follow this path of alignment, it has become easier and easier for me to step back into joy anytime that I feel off. And as I've done this over time, those states of joy just become deeper and more profound. When I am aligned, I feel whole, I feel well, I feel just these incredible states of love. And that's what I wish for you as well. So if this resonates, then the first step is to take the self-assessment. It will help you to better understand how unconscious unhappiness is showing up for you. And you'll learn more about how to identify and then deal with each of the 7 masks, so you can reset and come back into alignment. And you can also sign up at thejoywithin.org to access more free trainings, guided exercises, and meditations. And there's no upsell there. I earn my living through coaching by helping people to work through many of the issues that I've talked about here today. But most of my online content is free because we can be better. I really believe that. I believe we owe it to ourselves, to our families, and even to the world at large to step into a higher version of ourselves. My only ask is that if you enjoy this content, you pay it forward. Follow, share, support, whatever is right for you. Thank you so much for your time and your presence here today. Know that I love you and I appreciate you wherever you are. And don't forget to check out that free self-assessment so you can start turning unconscious unhappiness into more conscious and deliberate joy. Thanks for listening to The Joy Within. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do what you can to spread the word. I believe that we all deserve to feel calm, confident, and happy literally every single day. But with everything that's going on in the world, we need to work together to remind ourselves of that in as many little ways as we can. So please, pass this along to the people you care about. Email a friend, share it on social, do whatever feels right for you, so that hopefully, together, we can create a little more peace in our crazy modern world.